Hopefully we are live. Going to check. Going to check. Of course, commercial. I got to watch my own damn commercials. All right, just hurry up, commercial. Just want to make sure I'm live. Just want to make sure I'm live. Make sure the sound's on. All right, we're good. We are good. I am on StreamYard today, so should be no problems. I don't need these. Should be no problems with the audio. Should be no problems with the video, and I can show your comments up on the screen whenever you guys get here. I'm a little early. Some of you may have been thrown off by daylight savings time, was looking for me an hour ago, or will be looking for me an hour from now. But welcome to the Ghost Stream. We're going to talk about all the South Jersey ghosts, everything South Jersey. So if you've got any questions regarding Jersey folklore, I'm pretty well read on the subject. Definitely let me know. So we'll give a few minutes here, let people get in. I'm going to shut this door. Forgot to shut the door, doggy. Doggy's here. Say hi, doggy. All right. Now, first, let's get started with some basics. For those of you who are just watching this after I've recorded it, we're going to start with the Jersey Devil legend itself. Now, I have my website, thefixsite.com. I started a list of some of the permutations of the Jersey Devil. There's quite a few of them. I got maybe about, over a dozen variations. So version 1 goes something like, in 1735, a woman named Leeds, who already had 12 children, gave birth to a 13th child. During labor, she proclaimed, "May the devil take this one." The baby, upon being born, turned into a monster with the head of a collie, the wings of a bat, and cloven feet. It promptly flew out the window and has been haunting the Pine Barrens ever since, mutilating animals, scaring the locals, and bringing bad luck. And that's kind of the basic Jersey Devil legend. Now, there's all sorts of variations on this. Sometimes the monster, the Jersey Devil, ate the family, which leads you to wonder how they lived to tell the story. There is a variation where she is called Mother Leeds. That's a pretty popular one, and her first name being Lucy Leeds. But there is a lesser known variation on the legend where her name is Mrs. Shrouds, and she lived in Leeds Point. And there's actually an address in one of the books, like the exact address of the Jersey Devil and where it was born. So it's a little bit bizarre. Another version, Mother Leeds was a witch. That's a version I use in the Pineys. The Pineys, by the way, thank you for buying a book. I should give Joan a treat. I should give Joan a treat anyway, because she's joining me for the live stream. And I don't think she wanted to, but here you go, Joan. A treat? You sleeping? What's a treat? There you go. Put it there for later. Anyhow, Mother Leeds was a witch. That's a pretty popular one for the most part. Pretty popular, It's an old folk tale, right? Let's see. Mother Leeds was a witch. The baby looked normal at first and then turned into a monster. Another version that was sent in to me, Mrs. Leeds had 12 children. Her children wanted to have another sister or brother. Once she gave birth, it killed her in labor. And the devil crawled out of her womb, crawled up the chimney, and the baby was deformed and mutilated. The Jersey Devil had the head of a collie. It frightened children as it crawled away. After many sightings have been reported for many years, it was called the Leeds Devil, aka the Jersey Devil. And that's one of the terms for it, the Leeds Devil. And understand that the Leeds family, when they first came to New Jersey prior to the Revolutionary War, they ran the province, or whatever the Brits called their colonies, part of the colony. They were in control of the land, so a lot of people resented them. And it was West and East Jersey, so I believe we were in West Jersey. The monster flew out of the window, but would return every day to his mother's doorstep. She kept shooing it away, and eventually the devil never returned. Another variation is the number variation. There's various numbers. So instead of the 13th child of the 13th child, it was the 7th of the 7th, the 6th of the 6th, the 7th of the 7th of the 7th day and the 7th hour, some kind of numerical thing. It was the devil was actually born instead of Leeds Point, Estiville, New Jersey, in Gloucester County, but flew to the swamps of Leeds Point. Another variation, it was born in Burlington, New Jersey. Another one, it was born in Pleasantville. Oh, here's the address, the 500 block of South Main Street. A more realistic version of the story, Mrs. Leeds had a baby that was so deformed, it tore her open when it was born. The deformed baby was kept out of sight by the family because it was so hideous. The birth was the result of Mrs. Leeds' promiscuous lifestyle, and the townspeople all shunned her. Another variation, Leeds was married to her brother, and thus the deformity. Another variation sent into me, a woman gave birth to a jaundice baby, skin slightly neon yellow colored, and they thought it was a demon. They cast it out of their home when it was old enough to find food for itself, and the like. It stayed alive for some time because of its diet of swamp slime and insects of the Jersey swamps. It eventually got electrocuted when he flew from the jaundice to a fluorescent green, and has been there after the Jersey Devil. God, that I really should have edited that. I cut and paste that from an email somebody sent me. Jesus, did I even read this? The spelling on that is horrific. The baby was kept locked up in the Leeds home. The locals hated the Leeds because she was kind of a slut. They branded her a witch and shunned her, which is why they concluded the birth of her deformed son was connected to Satan and witchcraft. So you can see there's many variations of the story. Version 3.0, this was one of the more embellished versions from the folklore and folk life of New Jersey. There lived in the year 1735 in the township of Burlington a woman. Her name was Leeds, and she was shrewdly suspected of a little amateur witchcraft. But be that as it may, it was well established that one stormy night when the wind was howling in turret and tree, Mother Leeds gave birth to a son whose father could have been no other than the Prince of Darkness. No sooner did he see the light than he assumed the form of a fiend with a horse's head, wings of a bat, and a serpent's tail. The first thought of the newborn Caliban, the deformed slave from Shakespeare's Tempest, was to fall foul of his mother, whom he scorched and bepommeled soundly, and then flew through the window out into the village, where he played mischief generally. Little children he devoured, maidens he abused. It's quite a bunch of mischief. Young men he mauled and battered. And it was many days before a holy man succeeded in repeating the enchantment of Prospero, again from Tempest. At length, however, the Leeds devil was laid, but only for 100 years. That little tale I used in the Jersey Devil comic book. And the story there is the devil comes back every 100 years and you have to confront it. The devil ran amok until 1740, where a brave clergyman used a bell, book, and candle to exorcise the demon for 100 years. So there's another version of the 100 years tale. Version 4.0. Let's see. We got anybody in the chat here? Just checking for your chats. This is the Great Jersey Devil Hoax of 1909, which I've talked about pretty extensively. So Jim Jeffries and Jacob Hope was his sidekick. And I did this for Jersey Devil number, I guess it was 10. And it was all about the, the staging of the Jersey Devil. And they rented a kangaroo and they painted it green and tied antlers to its head. They called it an Australian vampire. They offered a reward for it. And then they captured it in Fairmount Park and put it on display in the Dime Museum. And so you could read about that in the Jersey Devil book and in my comic. It's a crazy story. It didn't work. It was all supposedly going to save the Dime Museum. It got a lot of press at the time. It went viral for its day, but couldn't save the Dime Museum. Version 4.0 sent in back in 2003. She says, "Hi, my name is Kimberly Jeffries. I'm 16 years old, live in Ocean City, New Jersey. And I guess she says that Norman Jeffries was her uncle, or probably great uncle. And she heard that he married the sister of the Jersey Devil himself, one of the leads probably. And again, I really should have read these emails before I posted them on my website. But anyhow, it was a relative of Norman Jeffries who sent in this email. Version 5.0, the entire tale was transported to the U.S. either by Hessian or Slavic immigrants who eventually settled in the area. Since the Pine Barrens is notoriously hard to farm, the locals blame their trouble on an imaginary satanic monster. This isn't too far from the truth. The Native Americans who lived in the area, the Lenni Lenape, they were sort of forced into the Pine Barrens by the locals in New Jersey because the Europeans were moving in, and the Native Americans didn't quite understand the concept of private property. They just, they were nomadic and they moved around. So when people showed up and built permanent homes, like they didn't really get the whole deal, right? They kind of thought, at least initially, oh, these people are moving in, but they'll start moving around like us, right? They didn't get it that they were there permanently, that they were buying and selling the land and, writing out deeds for themselves and all that. So naturally, they just sort of got pushed out of the more farmed areas as these people, farm them. And eventually they had some kind of reservation in the Pine Barrens. And they would typically put the Native Americans in the less developed areas. And it tended to be, excuse me one sec, it tended to be areas that were like the Pine Barrens. They weren't as developed. So after a few years, the Lenni Lenape left the Pine Barrens because they just couldn't farm it. By then they started to become farmers, and it's just not a great place to farm. There's certain things you could grow. I mean, you could harvest pine cones and sell them, I guess, and blueberries and a few other things, but it's not the kind of farming situation that's ideal. So it's hard to eke out a living on a farm in the Pine Barrens unless you've kind of cleared the forest and brought in different topsoil or whatever. Now the big thing is vineyards. There are vineyards popping up all over the place because there's wineries popping up here. A few years back during the Christie administration, diverge for a minute, they opened up things to wineries and breweries who do tastings. Right, it was a way around New Jersey's ridiculous liquor licenses. Like they say in New Jersey, it takes a miracle to get a liquor license. They're incredibly valuable. We had a bar across from our house that closed, and they didn't care about the building, but there was a huge fight over the liquor license, and that was more valuable than the entire building itself. So someone bought the liquor license from that bar and moved it to another bar or somewhere. So now, though, the wineries and the breweries have opened up. They're not supposed to have food. There's all these weird things they have to, instead of just selling it, they have to go through all these hoops to sell you wine and what. No, you're just doing a tasting, and then you have to go to the separate store to buy wine, and then they can kind of sell you food, but that's separate from the wine or something ridiculous like that. But down where a lot of my family lives, there's a new winery it's relatively new. It's called Sherrod, and it's just doing gangbusters. Oh my God, the place has just absolutely exploded. And then they're building another one right nearby. And part of the reason is the soil in New Jersey is good for the grapes. So, and there has been a few wineries down there before. Renault Winery has been down there since I was a little kid. And they had, a restaurant and a place you could rent out for your wedding and stuff like that. But it's getting bigger and bigger. Unfortunately, the Native Americans didn't jump on that train. It wasn't, I don't know. It's hard to grow grapes. It takes a long time. It takes a few years before the vineyard gets going. But once you get it going, then it's just about protecting the grapes. Version 6.0, the X-Files episode. For those of you who don't know, the Jersey Devil, they did an entire episode that takes place in the Pine Barrens, and it was this weird story about having primitive humans live in the Pine Barrens, and they've been living there since Neolithic times. It was kind of almost like a Bigfoot type story, only just with people who lived in the woods. Version 7.0, Leeds was married to a British soldier during the Revolutionary War, and the town cursed her, which is why the baby was a devil. 8.0, the father of the devil is a local minister who was mistreated by the town. The baby was born a devil to punish the townspeople. Version 9.0, October of 1830, a man named John Viet of Vienna, New Jersey, used some sort of mask to entertain children at Halloween. The event became an annual ritual, which blossomed into the Jersey Devil story. I believe this story is partially true, at least, that there was a man who did this back in the 1830s. But I think the legend was around before that. Around 1850, a woman refused food to a traveling gypsy, so the gypsy cursed her, and she gave birth to the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil was born along the Mullica River to a Jane Leeds Johnson and Jake Johnson in the house on Cale Cavaliers Lane. The version 12.0 was the New Adventures of Johnny Quest episode. They did an episode about the Jersey Devil. And version 13.0, see, 13 versions. The story somebody sent in, the story that I heard, that there was this lady who was pregnant with a 13th child. The other 12 were born sick. And she said, while in labor, if this child be sick, let it be a devil. The child was born sick and came out the devil, which killed all the nurses and the mother. The story was on TV. The show was the Real Scary Stories, where they actually went out and taped the Jersey Devil chasing them growling to prove it was real or not, which came out to be true. The title Real Scary Stories means that they are real. I don't know why you would say that. A few people sent me emails about the Jersey Devil. So there's 13 versions of the Jersey Devil story, and there are many more. I've heard, at comic book conventions, I would go and people would say, oh, yeah, my dad told me this or that. There was a house along 561. They say if you walk down the stairs backwards and look out the window, you'll see the Jersey Devil peering at you. Another woman said she saw the Jersey Devil. It was in my letters column in the comic. The Jersey Devil was running across the road. And she stopped and she made eye contact with it, and it had very human eyes. Another one, a woman said she was driving along a dark road in the Pines and went past someone's house, and the Jersey Devil was sitting on their front lawn, and he was covered from head to toe in white fur. So, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So there's an endless supply of stories for me. Now some of you have asked me what sort of books I read. Where do I get a lot of my info? The internet has tons of it, but there are some great books out there about various things in New Jersey. These are the classics that I'll just mention briefly. Henry Charlton Beck wrote a bunch of different books on South Jersey. This is one of them, The Roads of Home, Lanes and Legends of New Jersey. So some of them are here. Although be warned, Henry's writing, this book was published back in the 30s, I believe, and Henry's writing isn't great. It kind of rambles from thing to thing. Thank God they put an index in here. This was like sort of the old school way to write. They just write a bunch of stuff, and so it's a little hard to read, but if you're interested in the subject matter, it is good stuff. Forgotten Towns of South Jersey, also one of his books. And I believe this is the big classic, Jersey Genesis, the story of the Mullica River. So those are pretty good. The ones I've referred to often, Pine Barrens, Legends, Lores, and Lies by William McMahon. It's a really good book. It's got a lot of cool legends in it. And of course, the Jersey Devil book, the original red book, you absolutely cannot do without if you want to know anything about the South Jersey legends by McCloy and Miller. This is the one that inspired me when I was a kid. It was in every school library down here. And so if you grew up in South Jersey, you probably saw a short film or a film strip back in my day about the Jersey Devil legend. I have framed in my office. I can't show you because I can't turn the camera around. It's kind of blocked by a light. But I have a poster they used to hang in schools about the Jersey Devil. And it has an illustration of the devil and various versions of it, pictures of the woods, and they call the super spirit of the Pine Barrens, and little write-ups on it. There's a famous postcard. Do I have that postcard? I think I had it. It's around here somewhere. The famous postcard with an illustration of the Jersey Devil, where he's very imp-like and short, maybe about 3 feet high. And back in those days, it was more of like he was like the devil, the kind of devil who will cut you a deal. We're going to cut a deal here for your soul, and you're going to get something. And then, I've got your soul. That also tied into one of the legends here in Pine Barrens, Legends, Lores, and Lies, about Sammy the Fiddler, who did a fiddle contest with the devil. Like the devil went down to Georgia kind of contest. And he won. And the devil was so impressed, he taught him the air tune, which is this, mystical song that only the devil and Sammy can play. And the rumor has it you could still hear Sammy walking around the Pine Barrens playing the air tune. That, somehow the air tune allows him to continue to live. And that's going to be, that legend's going to be in the Pineys book 10. The Pineys book 10, by the way, It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a slightly different format. It's going to be every book in the Pineys has been 13 chapters because Jersey Devil. And so for book 10, instead of 13 chapters, it's going to be 13 short stories. So it's going to, I'm going to tackle some of the shorter folk tales that probably wouldn't sustain a whole book kind of thing. And that one, and also too, it's like kind of like The Simpsons, where I can do like a little bit more on some of the side characters, so they get their own day in the sun kind of thing. I had a lot of fun writing that. I'm going to have to do another short story one again, but so that one's coming out in October, and book 9 is shaping up. Already got the cover to that. I just gave Vig, the cover artist, the details for the cover for book 10, so we started working on that. So book 9 comes out in the summer, and book 10 should be out in October, because I always like to have one out in October. So I'll have 10 books. We're up to 8. The book 8, of course, was about, and let's talk about this legend as long as we're on the subject. The legend of Route 55, otherwise known as Indian Curse Road, which I talked about on the Lotus Eaters. If you watch the Lotus Eaters, I do a video comment. I'm not part of the show. I am, but I'm not. Anybody who joins the Lotus Eaters podcast and pays the gold premium membership can do a 30-second video. So I've been a member for a while, and I keep doing videos about the pines and ghosts, and they seem to like it. So anyhow, one of the ones I did on the Pine podcast was about Route 55 and Indian Curse Road. And the background is there is an extension that goes from Route 42 to the Deptford Mall, and that's Route 55. It's Route 55 existed before then, but the road didn't go all the way to 42. So back in 83, they built it. Oh, excuse me. I'm trying not to sneeze. And during construction, they came across an Indian burial mound. And there are a lot of them in this area. And normally, they leave them alone. But instead of diverting the road, they decided, screw it. We're just going to go right through it. And so they did. And the locals complained. And sure enough, there were mysterious accidents during the construction of the road. One of the road crews supposedly fell from the overpass and died. Another member of the road crew was setting up cones, and the wind blew the cones and confused the drivers, and he stepped out into the lane and got hit by a car. But he wasn't killed, is my understanding. So, and I think there were a few mysterious other accidents. So Route 55, I got my hair sticking up here. What the heck happened? Route 55 is considered cursed, and it's considered bad luck. Oh, hey, Dan. Let's put Dan's comment up. That's pretty creepy. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like karma, right? You remember when that happened in 83? I am old enough to remember. I was 17. I do remember hearing about the extension. I don't know if specifically I remember about hearing about the accidents. I remember hearing about the extension, and I do remember hearing about the protest about it, because I think it was on the local news at that time. I don't remember hearing about the accidents, though. But I'm sure they happened. I mean, accidents happen on road crews all the time. So, and this was 83. Things were a little looser in the 80s, a little riskier. If you want me to talk about the 80s, I can tell you all about it. It was a crazy time. Compared to now, it was, it's weird because you get older, and like when I was a kid, his hair was get in my hat. That when I was a kid, older people would talk about the olden days, and I'd just be like, It was probably exactly the same. I can imagine. Yeah. It was probably exactly the same. You old fogies. What do you keep talking about the past for? Like, who cares? And now I'm that age, and I'm just like, oh, you guys missed out. You guys missed out. But they said the same thing when I was a kid. So I guess, the 40s must have been out of control. But back in the 80s, people today, they kind of don't understand what it was like. I had to explain to my nephew one day what payphones were and how phones worked back in the 80s. And it was such a weird conversation to have for me, but it was even weirder for him because he just didn't know. He just didn't understand. Like, and the way I explained it was, phones at that time, they were in buildings, right? You didn't carry a phone around with you. That was something you had to, that was a service you needed from somebody else if they had a house. And then payphones were like, mini houses. Yeah, exactly. Telephone booths. They were like mini houses that you could use temporarily if it was in an emergency. And then I tried to explain to him how disgusting public payphones used to be. Gross, the most disgusting things you could ever touch. I remember always being grossed out whenever I had to use a payphone, 99% of the time. Once in a while, you'd find a payphone in the middle of nowhere. It was nice and clean. But if you had to use a phone on the streets of Philadelphia, oh my God. It was a horror show. There was gum on it. It was, homeless. I would always imagine homeless people somehow peeing on them and putting them back. And ugh. They were just gross. And also, too, they had the most ridiculous terms of service, right? Because it was supposed to be a dime. Like, initially, it was all about, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to tell you. How much did it cost? I'm going to tell you. So, initially, it was a dime. Like, you put a dime in and you get a call. But it was a very short call. It was like, I don't know, a 5-minute call. And so if you started talking and you ran out, the operator would interrupt you and say, please deposit 10 cents for the next 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it was. And so you'd immediately go for your pocket and start scrambling to get some change out of your pocket. And then you could still hear your friend in the background, like, oh, are you going to go? No, wait a minute. I had one more thing to tell you. Let me get a quarter here. Hold on. And then you'd struggle to get it into the slot before the 30 seconds ran out or whatever. And if you missed it, they just cut you off. But if you got it, then it would click and you'd hear, you have another 5 minutes or whatever. And you'd just be like, yeah. You're eating up my 5 minutes by telling me I have 5 more minutes or whatever. And then you'd complete your call. But if for some reason, a lot of times this happened, you put in the coin, but it just went straight through the phone all the way out into the change things, you'd have to immediately jam your finger into the slot, grab the coin again, put it back in and hope it clicked. It was a nightmare. But then later, of course, the phones towards the end of their run, they got more expensive. Then it was a quarter. Then it was like 50 cents for 10 minutes. Then it was like $1. At the very end, I remember it being like $1, talk as long as you want kind of thing. By the end of payphones, they were just in like hotels. Like hotels still had them, even though people were getting cell phones, because, it was kind of a courtesy for hotels. So they sort of clung to them for the very last little bit of payphone. And I had a friend, one of my artists, in fact, that was his job. His job was to go to payphones around South Jersey and empty the coins out of them. And that's what he did for the phone company. And I told him, I said, dude, you got to get out of that job because they're going to fire you eventually because everybody's getting a cell phone. And I was one of the last holdouts of a cell phone, by the way. I didn't have a cell phone until, I was like the last guy in South Jersey to get one. I hated it. I didn't want one. And then I finally got one and I got into it. Sounds like a sweet gig. I guess. I don't know. They had a way of doing it that you couldn't steal the money, you know? Yeah, exactly. They had a way of doing it so he couldn't steal the money. Like you had to hook up this thing to it and then turn a key and then the money would go in. Like the money never touched his hands, I guess. It was the same thing for like parking meters, I guess, which are still kind of a thing, but now you can use your credit card. Anyhow, but I digressed. Indian Curse Road, basically the story is now bad things happen on the road because it's cursed, because the Indians are still mad and will be mad forever, we assume. And so people get into accidents. They see other ghosts. There's been a few other ghost sightings. Weird New Jersey has a big article on the subject. They've seen a woman in white walking along the road at night. Of course, it's always at night or when the weather's bad and it's raining. And one other ghost, I forget what that one is. So in the Pineys, we do a whole story about it. And I even do a chapter or part of a chapter that takes place in the 80s. So that was a lot of fun. But there are tons of stories like this all around South Jersey, and just a few of them that I talked about on the Lotus Eaters. There's a great site called Haunted Rooms that had the most haunted places in South Jersey. Burlington County Prison at Mount Holly, number 10, which is a great one I talked about on the Lotus Eaters. They, of course, executed people there, and, it's a very, very old prison. So naturally, there would be a lot of ghosts. The Hindenburg Hangar, where everybody died during the Hindenburg crash, that is a place for ghosts. And in fact, after the Hindenburg disaster, they put the bodies of the people who died or were horribly injured in the hangar. So some of them may have actually died there. Trenton Psychiatric Hospital in Mercer County, which I don't think I have done yet. Or maybe I did. Yeah, Dr. Cotton. Dr. Cotton performed countless experimental procedures while in residence in the hospital, which led to many deaths. So there are ghosts there. The Washington Inn in Cape May. There's so many haunted inns at Cape May. It's kind of like, a contest in Cape May. That hangar is definitely haunted. Have you been there? Have you been to the hangar, Don? There's so many haunted inns and bed and breakfasts down in Cape May. I mean, you can't even count them all. It's like a feature of Cape May. You go to a B&B and it's an old Victorian place. Can't say you have. You go to a B&B down in Cape May because it's a nice place to go. In fact, I dated a girl in North Jersey who used to tell me that guys would ask her out to go to Cape May for the weekend. And as she said, to have sex. And I would just be like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. They're B&Bs. What else are you going to do? You're going to go all the way down there and sleep in the same room. I'm pretty sure you're going to have sex. I mean, pretty sure if you're going to go all the way from North Jersey all the way down to Cape May for the weekend, you're probably going to have sex. If not, seems like a waste of the B&B to me. But that's supposedly a feature of a lot of places down at Cape May. Some old Victorian lady ghost is like walking around. But the Washington Inn is one of them. The Pine Barrens in general, of course, tons of ghosts. This was my favorite, the Taj Mahal Casino, and this was another one I did for book 10. The 10th floor casino ghost. And supposedly it was a gambler who lost all his money and jumped to his death. And then at every night or every year on the anniversary of his death, he jumps again and you could see him fall. I've been down there, but I haven't seen it. But, a lot of people ask me, have you seen a ghost? Have you seen a ghost? No, I haven't seen a ghost. I've never seen a ghost. Yeah. The closest thing I ever saw as a ghost was I had a incredibly vivid dream one night. I was sleeping in bed and I woke up and I looked down towards my feet and a hand came up and grabbed my foot and I screamed and I woke up because it was so vivid and real. But that was a dream, that was a dream. But some people claim to see ghosts. I don't judge. I think it's funny. Henry Ludlam Inn in Dennisville, another haunted B&B. The Abbott House in Mays Landing. Another place I don't think I mentioned on the Lotus Eaters yet. Southern Mansion in Cape May, another Cape May place. And the Jonathan Pitney House in Absecon, which I did mention in one of my video comments. It is, Pitney was the one of the founders of Atlantic City. In the early days of Atlantic City, he brought the railroad there, and that was a big deal. The railroad basically was almost like a straight shot all the way to Atlantic City because it was a resort town, or it was a booming one at the time. There's a great book on the, I don't have a copy of it with me, but on the history of Atlantic City called Temples of Chance, which you should read if you have an interest, not so much on ghosts, but just on the history of Atlantic City, because it's quite fascinating how incredibly corrupt Atlantic City has always been. From the moment they laid the foundation of Atlantic City, from the first building they built in Atlantic City, it was corrupt. And I believe at the time of the book's writing, the author said every single mayoral administration in Atlantic City has been corrupt in one way or another. Either they've been indicted or they've been arrested. And I believe that still holds true today. I'm almost sure it does. They have literally so many problems with the government down there. You have city councilmen and mayors doing all sorts of illegal, crooked things. Now it's more casino related a little bit, but even before the casinos, it was a huge problem. It was one of the reasons the casinos moved there and turned it in, because I remember Atlantic City before the casinos, and it was a dump. Okay, it was an absolute dump. So you got to remember, Atlantic City in the 70s had no casinos. It was just like Ocean City and Wildwood with a boardwalk and carnival games, except it was near a much bigger city, so it was more urban. And they had the wheels, where you'd win prizes like toys and bandanas, or you'd win those like black lights or like a mirror with Scarface on it, or it said Budweiser, or like Let's Party with like hemp on it. Because Atlantic City was so poor and fallen apart. When I was a kid, my dad took me to Atlantic City, and I loved to play the little wheel game. So he'd give me a quarter and I'd play. Well, we got to the wheel game in Atlantic City, and I looked around at the prizes, and they were all canned goods. Like literally, people were gambling to win like a can of beans, because it was that depressing in Atlantic City, which was sad because it was a big draw for so many years. And it was the home of the Diving Horse, the Steel Pier, and the Diving Bell, which were all on the same pier. And when I was a kid, I saw the Diving Horse, and it's exactly what you think it was. It was a freaking horse that would be up in the air, and then they'd have it on like a wooden ramp, and then tilt the ramp until the horse kind of slid off, and you'd see the horse go and then dive into the water. And was it cruel? It was kind of awesome. I don't know what the horse felt about it, but The horse seemed to be okay. I mean, obviously they put enough water in the damn tank that the horse could do this. And I went to the diving bell. Now, back then, it was kind of polluted in Atlantic City, so it was kind of gross going down to the diving bell, but I went. And the steel pier itself was very historical. Unfortunately, it was actually Donald Trump who tore down the steel pier. He bought it and tore it down, calling it an eyesore. Yeah, it kind of was, but it was a historical thing. Really wish he had sort of fixed it up instead of tearing it down. And then years later, he announced, I'm going to rebuild the steel pier. And we were all like, well, you kind of tore it down. But maybe it was for the best. I don't know. I mean, they could never bring back the diving horse. I'll tell you that. They'd never bring back the diving horse. But, they did have a music pier that was a huge music venue for many years. And this goes back to when music was hot in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. The music pier in Atlantic City was like a huge venue. So, I mean, that they certainly could rebuild. I don't know if modern people would be interested in the diving bell, maybe kids. Certainly they could build more amusement park things, and they have in Atlantic City. They're building more hipstery stuff down there. They got a beer garden now, all kinds of places. I miss the old stuff. It had a bit of character to it. Roger's Famous Hot Dogs was like a holdout. It was this huge building for some reason. I don't know what the rest of the building was, but the bottom floor was Roger's Famous Hot Dogs. And it was just this restaurant that only served hot dogs, and they had a karaoke machine. And I remember going down there thinking, oh man, this place is going. And it was like, he was literally one of the last holdouts until one of the casinos bought it and knocked it down. But it was a quaint old building, all made of stone and brick and whatever. But getting back to the ghost, this was a new article I found. I think I'll be doing one on the Lotus Eaters about one of these places. The Haunted Pubs of New Jersey, 10 spots with all sorts of spirits. Number 10 is the Naughty Pine Pub in Wharton, which I think I'm going to do this for a video comment on Monday. There's apparently a ghost that stands near the dartboard. probably wants one last game and a pint before he goes off to the great beyond. The Brass Wet Rail in Hoboken. Legend says that in 1904, a newly married bride tripped at the top of the brass rail staircase, fell down the stairs, and died at the bottom of the stairs. So ever since, the pub has been known for its spirits, including the very bride who has been seen standing on the staircase. That one's a bit creepy. The Shore House in Point Pleasant, formerly the West Point Hotel. The Shore House was built in the 1800s and was used as a makeshift morgue following a shipwreck in 1846. It's been used as a speakeasy and a brothel throughout the years. This one, I believe I did do a piece on Lotus Eaters about this. Got a great history there. And what else? Columbus Inn in Mansfield, which is no longer in business. Some say the Columbus Inn could actually be the birthplace of the Jersey Devil. Television and newspaper reporters have visited the 1812 dwelling in search of the haunted past. The Jersey Devil hasn't returned home, but legend says that it is haunted by an orphan girl who worked there in the 1800s and the mean-spirited woman who tormented her. Well, that sucks. I mean, it's bad enough living an eternity as a ghost, but then having your tormentor as a ghost too. Oh, Harper's Pub in Clementon. I know this place. It's not very far from my house. Harper's Pub. How did that get on the list? Let's see here. Mark Chernoff, the current owner of this 200-year-old building, yep, it is very old, began experiencing the spirits of Harper's Pub shortly after taking over in 2009. In September 2015, Chernoff called in a group of paranormal investigators to look for evidence of what was really happening using a Kinneck system, whatever that is, a skeletal mapping program that utilizes Kinect video game sensor and laptop. Oh, I'm sure that's very accurate. An investigator picked up strange figure in the office where Chernoff had previously experienced strange activities. That one's a bit vague. What's a bit vague? I always love when they announce that, we brought in paranormal investigators with their high-tech stuff, and they figured out where the ghosts were. I'm like, okay. Harper's Pub is nearly 200 years old and has quite a haunted history. Shown here is the airplane room on the 3rd floor, and it looks pretty gross. Clean up the damn pub. That place is open, and that room looks a wreck. Lake House Restaurant in Newfield. That one sounds familiar. I think I did that one too. Several seedy rumors that weave through the history of what's now called the Lake House in Newfield. Built in the early 1900s as a hotel, it is said that the building has served as a brothel, speakeasy, and fight club where illegal fights were held. Several figures have been seen, including a lady in black who is believed to be the original owner, a spirit named Victor, and shadow figures. Actually, I confused this with the other place that was formerly a brothel. The Lake House, was the one I did on Lotus Eaters. God, how many brothels did we have in New Jersey? South Jersey used to rock. Tavro 13 in Swedesboro, built nearly 250 years ago. The building it currently houses the Tavro 13 restaurant in Swedesboro has a hauntingly interesting history. General manager and events coordinator Ilsa Pope says a girl named Edie, who lived in the building when her parents owned it as an inn, still plays within its walls. The most significant thing that happens is you'll be in the stall and no one else in the bathroom, and the faucet will turn on. So there you go. That's a ghost. I don't know why the ghosts do that. They must be bored. You're spending 200 years, moping around. Once in a while, you're just like waiting. Oh, man, I hope somebody goes to the bathroom today so I could just turn on the faucet and freak them the F out. All right, I'll wait. You wait 2 days for someone to come into the bathroom. Thank God these people are back. All right, he's going into the stall. There, I turned it on. Yes. Ghost. Woodstown Hotel and Tavern in Woodstown. In 1836, Jacob B. Keeley built a 3-story tavern, which is now Woodstown, and it named it the Washington House. There have been many claims of hearing voices, seeing figures, and witnessing objects moving on their own. Do I know this place? Sounds really familiar. Woodstown is not too far from me, so maybe. Turnpike Inn in Carney's Point. There's a picture. Just looks like a bar. This historic location is situated on the hub of New Jersey Turnpike and Route 40 and I-295. There are many stories surrounding the pub, but the one I'm going to share is my own personal experience, says the author. Oh, excuse me. One night while sitting at the bar talking to a friend, the door leading to the kitchen swung open on its own accord and continued to swing until it settled back into place. No one was in the kitchen, and no windows were open for the wind to push the door. Legend has it a man died while playing pool there. I guess he had to go into the kitchen and make himself a sandwich. The Ugly Mug in Cape May. That name sounds familiar. I think I may have at least passed by this place. On Washington Street Mall in Cape May. It's a favorite haunt of locals and tourists alike. Its haunted roots run deep, and countless people, staff, patrons, and paranormal investigators, of course, have experienced the pub's past. Lights flicker, apparitions have been seen, and Craig McManus, Cape May's resident paranormal expert, says he has met several spirits, and he just can't leave their favorite pub. The atmosphere is cozy, but the lingering possibility of a haunting gives it extra energy, making it a stop at the Mug necessary for any paranormal enthusiast. And that article was by Kelly Ron Kantz. Kantz? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that was from NewJersey.com. So there you go, 10 places to visit. if you're here in South Jersey, amongst all the other millions of places. Callum over at the Lotus Eaters asked me one day, will I run out of stories, ghost stories in South Jersey? And then I showed him 2 lists I found online of literally hundreds and hundreds of stories. And the basic answer is no, not for a while. It's getting harder and harder to find them and find enough details that make them different. I mean, you could see that I confused the lake house with another one because it's very similar stories. A lot of times it's a lady in black, a lady in white, a lady in red. Of course, there's, faucets going on, lights flickering, doors opening, cabinets opening, that kind of thing. So they all have very sort of similar stories. A lot of times it's people who have died in the building. That seems to be a running theme. But sometimes it's just someone who, they didn't get murdered. They just passed away in the house and they can't leave, or they have some, a lot of times it's women. It's a romantic kind of thing. Like, a woman dies unloved or waiting for her lost love, or her love dies in the war and she dies of a broken heart. And now she just wanders. One of my favorites, and I still can't find enough details on it to do a video comment. I know they're only 30 seconds. I can't find enough details for 30 seconds, but this one it's called The Black Dog. I've only found one entry on Wikipedia about it. And I don't really trust Wikipedia, but I've been trying to find, another entry about the black dog. But supposedly the black dog wanders the beaches of South Jersey, and unlike a lot of ghost dogs in other literature, including that in the UK, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do it for the Lotus Eaters, that our black dog brings good luck. So, but can't seem to find the entry. It's in Wikipedia, and Wikipedia, they're not supposed to put anything in Wikipedia without a reference. So normally if I go to Wikipedia to find something, I immediately go to the reference and then read the reference. But in this case, can't find a reference. So it references a book, and then I consulted the book, and the book is like, it's like a kid's book. It's like a kid's narrative, and it's not, it looks like somebody's story, not like someone's account or someone, hey, this is a folk tale I've heard. It's like a kid's story about like buried treasure in South Jersey. And then, oh yeah, there's a dog that may wander around as a ghost. It's just like, I don't know. Wikipedia, it's a very low bar. It's a very low bar at Wikipedia, in my opinion, anyway. One of the best places I use, of course, for reference is Weird New Jersey magazine. And Weird New Jersey was one of the places I showed Callum. They have the Weird New Jersey issue search index, or the Weird Index, as they call it, which indexes every single story in Weird New Jersey. And if you just type in ghost, there are just hundreds and hundreds of stories. Hundreds of stories. And they've got a lot of great stories. And I've done some of these on the Lotus Eaters. Some of the classic ones are the Atco Ghost, the Flanders Hotel in Ocean City. It's a very old hotel. They have a ghost there named Alice. I believe her name is Alice. Wikipedia used to be all right. Yeah, for some things it's okay. Like for TV shows, right? If you're looking up which episode a character appeared in or something like that, basically unimportant information, Wikipedia is great for, because there's no reason for somebody to like go in and change the description of a Seinfeld episode, right? So that's a pretty cool website for keeping stories alive. Yeah. But yeah, like I had a gig writing trivia questions, and I was doing sports questions. Now I know nothing about sports, so I was totally dependent upon resources on the internet. And my boss said, "Oh, you could use Wikipedia for that, no problem." And I said, "Okay." So I used Wikipedia, and I got burned because I was just, I don't know anything about sports. So you could have told me, what was the score of that soccer game? 250-1? Okay. And I type it right in because I don't know anything about sports. So it turned out it was wrong on a bunch of baseball stuff. And I sent in my questions, and my boss got furious. And I was like, you told me I could use Wikipedia. I copied the information from Wikipedia. What do you want from me? But, it depends. It depends on the thing. You just have to be wary, just like any place else. You have to be wary. If it's political, I would never use Wikipedia. No, it's become politicized. But for TV shows, for folk tales, I'd still want a little bit of a confirmation that someone didn't just make stuff up, because one of the things I discovered doing the Jersey Devil comic book, and I started the Jersey Devil comic book. I mean, I started writing the scripts for it in the 80s. I couldn't get it together in terms of a comic book because back then the technology, I mean, we're doing everything by hand. I literally, back then in the early 90s when we were putting together the comic, I would have the original artwork, and I had word balloons printed on separate paper, on this special paper, which had a backing on it that was sticky. It was like a Post-it note, so I could stick it onto the artwork and not hurt the artwork. And I had to hand cut every word balloon for all the dialogue in the first issue of the Jersey Devil, and it took a long time. I had to do a lot of scanning at Kinko's. Like, none of this stuff was at home. Like, doing a scan at home, that was like, you got to buy a bunch of equipment and it costs hundreds of dollars. I didn't have any of that, so I would have to go to Kinko's to do all that. Now it's easy. Now people just email me a file and I put it in Photoshop, and in 10 minutes I got word balloons. In fact, I just did the word balloons on the anti-war comic at the Webcomic Factory last night. I was a day late. I just zoned out. I didn't even post anything on Saturday. Sorry about that. Kind of like how old animation works. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, they used to have to do them all by hand. Now what they do is they have a computer. My understanding is the computer will fill in the gaps. So instead of drawing like Homer, like 24 times for a 24 frame thing, they'll only have to draw him like 3 times, and then in different positions, and then the computer will like fill in the gaps in between. And so if you want to get Homer walking across the room, you don't have to draw him that many times now. Now the computer will take that animation and go, oh, okay, his foot moves and this moves and blah, blah, blah. And even that's getting so crazily sophisticated. When they first did that software, you'd have to pick all the joints and line it up on the computer and render it. Now, like, you just pop in a picture and the computer will guess. The software can guess. And it's semi-accurate from what I understand. I don't do a lot of work with it. I wish I had the time. I would love to do some cartoons. That would be fun, but they're incredibly time consuming and I just don't have it. My nephew is learning that stuff currently, and I hope he gets on point with it so I can borrow him to do some cartoons. But it's very tedious, but it gets easier and easier every year, and animation unfortunately is very cost ineffective. Cartoons typically, they don't make a lot of money. They're a loss leader. You have to run a cartoon like a ridiculous amount of time to get your money back. A Pineys cartoon, I would love to do a Pineys cartoon. Love it, love it, love it. Speaking of which, I'm still working on the audiobook for the first Pineys. I may actually start working on it today because I had to stop and start over. It's a long story, but it was. I had to do some more editing on the first book. Nothing major. I just had to fix a couple minor problems that bugged me. And then I said, well, screw it. I might as well go through the whole book again, which I did. So now I have the current version is version 1.2 of the Pineys book 1. And I think I caught all the problems. They were very, very minor, just typos and a couple of margin things. But yeah, Pineys cartoon, I'd be all about it. It'd be super, super detailed. Yeah, it'd be great. I mean, there's a lot you can do with a cartoon. I mean, I love what the guys at South Park have done. You know, South Park is just the absolute best. It's just the absolute best. You know, they've done, if you play the South Park video game, literally every single episode is referenced, I think, in the South Park video game. And the detail in it is insane. You know, Kenny's room and Stan's room and Eric's room, like every Butter's room you see, and all the different things from different episodes sitting in the background. It's friggin' phenomenal, the amount of detail and work they put in to that show now. Yeah, I got to catch the new ones. I still haven't seen the COVID specials. They're on Paramount. I'm not paying for Paramount, so at some point I'm hoping the COVID specials will be off the exclusive site of Paramount and free for the rest of us fans. But we'll see. Yeah, I know. I'm surprised too. I mean, South Park, to me, is one of the few shows that actually got better as it got older. You know, The Simpsons kind of peaked. You know, a lot of people say it peaked around season 5, 6. I think it held up longer than that, but it's certainly now. What to me, I feel like The Simpsons, because it's gone woke and Disneyfied a bit, I think that's hurt the show. I think it's hurt the show tremendously. The last season I saw The Simpsons was terrible. It was just unwatchable. I think there was one, I mean, this was the season where Bart fights the patriarchy. Grandpa's revealed to be gay or questioning. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous season in my view. Whereas South Park never did anything like that. Yeah. Who still watches The System? Do you mean The Simpsons? I think you mean Simpsons. Yeah, I don't know. Now it's on Disney Plus. Who could even see it, I guess? Or is it on Fox still? I don't even know. I don't have a regular TV anymore. I became one of those people. I don't have a TV. That used to be a big thing back in the day when TV was a real thing. People would brag, I don't have a TV. I read books. I just don't have a TV because, number one, it's too expensive. Number two, there's so much crap on it. I can't even stomach it now. I can count on the fingers of one hand the TV shows that I'd watch. It'd be Archer, Bob's Burgers, used to be The Simpsons, maybe one or two other shows, and that's about it. And everything else, can't watch the news on it anymore. If you've seen my other videos, you know why. Can't watch most of the network stuff. And most of the network TV is just so unwatchable. So unbelievably unwatchable. And now they're trying to push all the streaming stuff. I'm ranting totally off topic here, but all the streaming stuff, and I talk a lot about that in Hollywoke, another novel, my theories on where streaming is going. And I'll say right here again, they're going to turn their streaming service into a TV channel on the internet. because I think that's the only viable option for them. They will show the stuff for free again, except they'll put commercials on, which you'll have to watch. And then they'll only show it at certain times. So it won't be a library. The free version will be, okay, if you want to catch this show, you got to watch it at a certain time. Otherwise, you got to pay us money, and then you could have access to the library, which I'm fine with. Excuse me. I'm totally fine with, because as much things change, as much as they stay the same. Yeah. That's true. That's very true. Yeah. And I personally, I'd be fine with it because I was used to that model, and then you'd have little software that would tape shows for you again. It'd be great. I'd be perfectly fine with that, but a lot of people in this day and age, what? I'm not doing that. I'm not binging like that. It's like, but this is the price you pay for free content. You have to watch the commercials. Seems fair. I'm not paying this streaming service. The problem with streaming services, there's not enough content. Disney created, even Disney can't seem to provide enough content for its own streaming service. They have a lot of it, but there's just not enough. You're from the generation of pirating. I cannot endorse that on a live stream in YouTube, Don. I cannot endorse that, but I cannot stop you either. So what are you going to do? I have mixed feelings about pirating, truly, because I am a guy who sells books and wants to do TV shows and stuff. So I'd feel weird if I worked very hard and put together a movie for legal purposes. Exactly. I'd feel bad if I worked very hard and put together a movie or a TV show and then people were just, watching it for nothing. But, when you look at the statistics, on the one hand, yes, you understand why they fight pirating. On the other hand, you understand too that most people who pirate stuff don't have the money or don't want to pay, and they won't. And what it leads to typically is it leads to a paying customer down the road. It tends to lead to more paying customers than it takes away from you, is my understanding. Oh, now everybody's in the live stream. Did everybody forget to set their clocks back? Is that it? So we got through most of the ghosts that I wanted to talk about. I was talking about Weird New Jersey. Let me see. Oh, Weird New Jersey had one of the best ones. One was the ghost, the Phantom of the Turnpike, which I really like that name. That is a movie for you, or a TV show episode. The Phantom of the Turnpike. I'm definitely going to do a Pineys about that one day. And another one, which I love too, is the ghost that haunts a strip club. That one's in North Jersey, so I may have to wait a little while to do that one for the Pineys. But the North Jersey story is that a gangster named Mad Dog, who was a bouncer at a strip club, died or was killed, and he haunts the strip club, which isn't a strip club anymore. And it was weird because it was the strip club was doing very well. It was being billed as the most haunted strip club in America. And then there was a murder there, another murder there or something. And they ended up closing the place down for it because strip clubs are pretty sketchy. Most of them are pretty sketchy. They always end up getting closed down by something, I think. So they closed down the strip club, and now it's a seafood place. But apparently, Mad Dog still haunts it, which must be very funny too, right? It's like you ended up eternity haunting a strip club, which maybe isn't such a bad deal because at least you get to see boobies all the time. And now you're stuck in a seafood restaurant while families complain about their lobster. So it's just weird. It's just weird. Anyhow, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream. And I appreciate you coming out, Don, to see it. And those of you who are watching it in in the recording. Hello. Sorry you missed it. I don't know if you were an hour early or an hour late, but thanks for tuning in. This has been the Ghost Stream. We talked about ghosts. So any last questions about any folk tales, now's your chance. For those of you who missed it, I guess you'll have to put it in the YouTube comments. And I'll get to them when I get to them. Check you out later. We'll be doing the usual videos, I think. Although I think I'm going to do a video. I think I'm going to do a video about this G4 TV situation. Clownfish TV did one, and I got a comment on it again. So I think I'm going to do that. All right, I got to go do my regular videos on top of this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.